Is everybody seeing what I'm sharing?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to do this because now I can look at it. To avoid infinity mirror, don't share your entire screen or browser, share just a tab.
We can see just the document that you're in.
Good, that's all I wanted to do. So,
Yeah.
all right, so the document, and I'm going to go ahead and send this to Diane, so nobody needs to try to capture screens or anything. I'm going to send this to Diane. She can disseminate it to all the committee members. I did not quite have that ready for that. I'm going to say right now, I have covered the following counties: Pinellas, Hillsborough, Polk, Orange, Duval. We know Palm Beach, Broward, and Dade. Those are the large 8 urbans. I supplemented with that Brevard and Collier County because both Brevard and Collier County have kind of well, at least Brevard has technological needs for education, and they've got some monetary, I should say, economic support for that particular county. Collier actually is a little more expensive to operate schools than Palm Beach, according to one of the metrics that's been used over the years to determine the Florida cost differential for districts that applies to state funding. So I included them for that reason. I'm going to go first in my presentation right here to Duval. Duval is a big outlier because they basically say, you can't do more than the assigned 6 periods that they do. But if you do the extra period, well, shall not be required to teach 6. You can't do the extra period unless you volunteer, basically. But if you volunteer, the salary you get is going to be negotiated. That was kind of an outlier. So that's kind of why I wanted to throw that one out there as well. And now I'll offer as a background, our current supplement for an additional period of instruction is $5,400 salary money only for the year. I know the district does add on top of that the variable fringe benefits so that counts as FRS money for the teacher in that year. In Hillsborough, I'll just kind of go through this quickly and not belabor the point. In Hillsborough, they take the time of their planning period and they teach, and then their day is effectively extended by 1 hour at their hourly rate for doing that particular job. So the actual cost is based on the hourly rate of the teacher who's doing the work. In Pinellas, if they are doing 7 periods in a 7-period day, I guess this is related to if the school has only 7 periods, then they get a 14% increase based upon their individual salary. If the school they're in has 8 periods and they do 7 periods instead of their required 6, they get a 12% increase. And again, I'll leave everybody to read the other parts of the language that are included. Did I say Polk? That was in Pinellas. In Polk County, they're paid at the high school or the middle school 1/6 more of their salary, which is 16 2/3%. Okay. In Orange County, they are paid an hourly rate based upon the entry-level teacher salary of whatever they have. And that's the hourly rate that they get. Broward County has a flat fee of $6,000. Miami-Dade, I didn't highlight this one, I'm sorry. Right here you'll see, I'll highlight it on my original. Miami-Dade does 1/8 more of the annual salary for an additional period of instruction. That's from their collective bargaining agreement. I talked about Duval already. Collier does 16% more, and Brevard does a flat rate of $7,018, half of which is distributed over the course of 24 pay periods, half of which is paid in a lump sum at the end of the contract year. In all of these situations that I just described, every one of these provides for a supplement that is greater than what is given currently in Palm Beach County. Questions? I guess you won't. I guess I'll just go ahead and quarterback this. Mr. Preddy, go ahead.
My question is when you look at these, one of the things, especially at our high school level, when they do an additional period, so they teach 5 out of 7, which then brings it to 6 out of 7 usually. How many of them are their standard is 6 out of 7 already at the high school level? Like their regular job is 6 periods already.
I did not go through and attempt to ascertain that.
Because that would be
To be honest.
a big that would be good to know.
I can tell you this, after Dr. Avosa became superintendent, he sought the opportunity to require 6 out of 7, and needless to say, on the union side, we absolutely did not budge on that one, because
I'm not advocating. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying that if we offer 5 out of 7, and then if we're already doing 5 out of 7, but their regular workday is already 6 out of 7, and then that's the additional is 7 out of 7, that it's apples and oranges there.
Yeah, I couldn't respond to that because that's not the information that typically that I pulled up from looking through the contract. I was looking for what they were compensated for if they did an additional hour beyond what they already have agreed to in their collective bargaining agreement. That would have been more of the parallel I was looking for. Justin.
Yes.
Just without having read these for this specific point, did you see any other districts that can mandate an additional period on people versus them having to mutually agree to it and volunteer for it?
Off the top of my head, virtually, I think virtually every one of these were people that were volunteering to do this. I do not recall language where it could be mandated. In one case in Duval, I think the superintendent had to approve it. So they literally had to volunteer to do it, but I do not believe that any of them were mandated at any point.
Okay. I think that's an important distinction to make, at least for me, in our push to try to get fair compensation for this, is that if it's purely voluntary, then there can be a little bit of relaxation on whether people are compensated to the level they should be because they've chosen to do it. Is that 100% a choice? Whereas in Palm Beach County, due to some older language that entitles a principal to mandate a 6 period, when you're forced to take on 20% more work against your will, to me, the compensation needs to be appropriate. Extent that I believe Palm Beach County currently does when they pay the rate that we have in the contract right now versus the cost to the district of teaching position divided by 5. To me, fundamentally, especially where people are being forced against their will to do it, if I'm taking 20% of a job, I should be getting 20% of the cost of that job or something comparable to that for helping the district out, or in the case I'm referring to, for being forced to help the district out, whether I want to or not. I think that's why I bring up the issue of any other districts that have language that can mandate it, because that's not, from what I've seen, commonplace to be able to impose the additional work on an employee like Palm Beach County has the ability to. Thank you.
And a great number of these others, the number that they have provided, the flat rate, in the case like a Brevard or some of the others, they're literally talking about a percentage, which is along the lines of what you just pointed out, that they're doing a significantly higher amount of money as a percentage, certainly of what they're earning or what their salaries are, in an attempt to match the increase in the workload. That seems to be a little bit more prevalent in some of these. Any other questions?
So in terms of the 6 period supplement that we're looking at right now, the context really is the increase for that time frame, correct?
Well, I think so, Dee, but I also think,
or are you thinking about other contractual language that you want to address?
Well, I mean, the contractual language, I think, given that this is essentially a collaboration, I kind of want to lean into the notion of the principals taking some of this information and maybe offering some of their thoughts on it, because when the day is done, they're the ones that are trying to fill out their schedule of offerings to meet the needs of their students. And I think it was readily determined in our first session that what's out there right now is not really assisting them in getting enough takers to do that work. And we're also talking about maybe some principals on this team that recognize if you force somebody to do something, to do extra work, that's not really a good way to build that kind of collaborative environment. If you talk to them and you express the need and this is what I can pay you, and they agree to do it, but then they're running short on people willing to do it under those terms, then they can speak to the concerns that they have about filling their schedules under the constraints we currently have. But even I think it is a fair statement to say the constraints that we have for what principals can offer for the additional period does not come anywhere close as a percentage of the cost or of the workload. It certainly doesn't come anywhere close to what the majority of these districts that are larger or as affluent as kind of those down here in Southeast Florida, when it comes to what they're offering their teachers to do the additional workload that is going to amount to an additional 16 to 20% work, depending upon what their load already is to start. So, I mean, so I'm very interested to hear what the principals might have to say, whether they think something that they've seen here would be enough of an inducement for teachers that have been reluctant to participate in doing an additional period when requested, if they think that would be enough to get them there, and if not, where do they think this needs to go to get them there? And Dee, I think this is your show again, so you can start calling on whomever.
Sandra?
I apologize that I did hop on a little bit later. But I guess my question, you shared several different counties, correct? And you're wanting us to see which would be more beneficial for our county. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, so I mean, I was asked to bring back some research, and I was interested in seeing what I think we're all interested in seeing what other counties were doing, and in an effort to determine where we fit into that schemata and how far through that we might need to go in some of your opinions as worksite leaders in order to have a proper inducement for teachers to take on 20% more work, at least in our county, at a rate that might cause them to be feeling like they're appreciated enough to do that, and then they're willing to put forth that time.
Okay.
Freddie?
My question for me, and I would love to know, like, so I think that a lot of what will come to CTA will be when teachers are mandated to do it. So that's what you're going to hear probably more than not. In my particular case, I do not make anybody. If you don't, I don't want you doing something that you don't want to do. So making teachers do it, and I know it's in the contract language, but making teachers do it at my location is just not a personal option for me. And I would want to know across our district how many principals actually mandate it, because it's very, I agree that if you make someone do it, you're not going to get the product you're looking for, especially if you make them do it in a high needs area, right? So in my particular situation, I always have teachers that are asking for 6-period supplements. They want to take, I mean, I already have a list of, we actually put that on our survey that we send out when they fill out what they want for next year. It is, would you be interested in a 6-period supplement for next year? So it's on there. And back to what I was saying earlier, Gordon, and I know that we have another meeting. I think that it's really important for us to know at the high school level how many classes those counties teach out of 6 or out of 7, because if they're mandated to teach 6 out of 7, then every single one of those principals are already getting a 6-period supplement included, are getting a 6th period out of those teachers automatically out of their regular salary. So then that's why I said comparing apples to oranges. If they're already teaching 6 out of 7 in those counties, then they're already getting an additional 6th period out of every single teacher on their campus at no additional cost to the principal's budget. So it is not comparing apples and oranges if we don't know that information, and that's an important piece of that puzzle if we're going to compare to the other large districts. And it might be where they're teaching 5 out of 7. Now, I know at the middle school level, most likely they're teaching 5 out of 6 classes. But at the high school level, if we're 5 out of 7 and they're 6 out of 7, then they're already getting that additional out of them at no additional cost to the parents.
And we're a small group, so Sandra, if you want to just unmute and we can continue the conversation, you don't have to raise your hand.
It's a little different. I do struggle to get 6-period supplements. And I shared that last time that we definitely have to make it more appealing. I totally agree. After our meeting last time, I spoke with some teachers and they really said that it wasn't worth the time that it takes to complete that extra supplement. I'm on block, so I couldn't answer the question as far as what the 7 period, maybe Ms. Wyatt can. I'm trying to reach people that are on a 7 period day, Philip. But anyway, it is not easy, and I don't mandate. I really try to encourage. I try not to mandate because that's not really good either. And if I have to mandate, it's because I'm definitely at their mercy with it. But I try not to mandate for them to do it. I really try to encourage. So it would be great for it to be a little bit more encouraging.
Go, Justin.
Thank you. So first, I think one, I agree with Principal Preddy that we'll go and we'll find out what their base schedules are in these districts to find out what those percentages equate to, if it's 5 out of 7 or 6 out of 7 or 6 out of 8 or 7 out of 8. I think that's a fair point. Two, I'd want to praise you for shying away from mandating in every instance you can, because even though it isn't a contract, we agree. I don't think it might be something we pursue on our own at the negotiations table, although obviously the compensation, I think, is the more likely route to fix this in our opinion. But yeah, the mandating by contract language, not everybody obviously, but a good percentage of those teachers are going to do it begrudgingly because they didn't have a choice, and then the students or the instruction might suffer just by nature. So I would hope if the district's able to produce data with regards to volunteer versus mandate, that it would show that a lot of principals are fortunately in your position. And to Principal Edwards' point, I sympathize with any principal who can't find people because they might find the compensation not to be attractive enough. I'll speak briefly from my limited experience. One year I volunteered to do a 6 period at Park Vista, and it was the same prep. So it wasn't even like I had a new lesson plans or a new course that I had to add to it. It was just a six go round with the same preps I had. And I only did it that 1 year because, at least for me personally, the additional 20% of instruction and the loss of 50% of my planning, it just was, I don't know what the dollar value would have been to keep me doing it, but I didn't even consider it the second year. Because it just wasn't going to fit with my attempt to balance, personal and professional, life and things like that. And then the last point I'll make, I think, is, at least for me, and I think Gordon might agree, is the way that we look at this in terms of the compensation level largely stems from the cost of an employee unit. If you hired somebody today to teach 5 classes in secondary, what would their compensation package be? Salary, benefits, et cetera. And I think the district puts, for a new teacher now, including compensation and benefits, that their total comp package is somewhere in like the $70-something thousand range when you include healthcare and FRS and things like that. So the way we look at this is, for every 5 teachers that take on a 6 period supplement, the district has like $78,000 to work with. And when they're paying them roughly $6,000 or less per person, they're only spending about $30,000 when they would have had to spend like $78,000 on an employee to fill those positions. So we're not saying in a perfect world, obviously, they get they get 1/5 of the share of the cost of that employee. But we certainly think that there's a middle ground between what they're currently compensated and what they would be compensated if they were paid dollar for dollar 20% of that employee cost that didn't have to get hired. So that's kind of a large part of our impetus to do this, is that the district budgets for employees to fill all these positions. And when people take on the 6th period, the district saves significant sums. I put in a public record request just for the number of 6th period assignments in each of the past 3 years, because we can price out, if we were to lean in a direction of increasing the compensation from what it is now to, XYZ higher amounts, we could price that out based on the average utilization of 6th period supplements across the district for the past 3 years. We just want to get people to a place where they're being compensated at a more equitable rate than we believe we currently are. And it's based on dollars and cents as much as we feel it's the right thing to do as well. And thank you all.
And I know that Corey, I don't know if you mind going over with some of the data that you shared.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Just really quick, I was just reinforcing, I think piggybacking on what everybody said, like from the secondary level, I can't live without them. I spent about 150 grand, Gordon, a year on them, and I'm averaging about 35. And to Justin's point, 35 divided by 5 is 7 teachers. So I'm spending, it's a lot. So I don't think I could run my school without them. And, I'm just hoping we bring resolution to this concern, because I really don't think, this could be delegated or looked over. I just wanted to bring some hard numbers to that. So that's all I have, Dr. Cruz.
Thank you. So where we stand right now, I know we have other data points that we are waiting to receive so that we can consider those. But in terms of where we stand, what do we feel like we need to receive to get to some kind of a solution or conclusion to our joint study? I know that we have perhaps Gordon, you can look into how many periods or out of how many periods, they're scheduled. And we can look at that PRR, Justin, that you filed, and maybe that's something that we can review as well. And then we also have data that we requested from our last meeting. So we can look over that during our next session, which will get scheduled. Is there anything else that you see for the good of the order that would bring us to some kind of resolution to our joint study?
I mean, I'll chime in a little bit that I love the notion that, clearly I think there's a lot of agreement that there needs to be something done here on the order of an increase, and, some kind of a coalescing around a number for maybe the team. That's a nice idea. Ultimately that would have to go to the CBA bargaining. But I think there's tremendous value for our teachers in members of both sides of this equation saying, look, this is not a model that is sustainable for us to get the work done that needs to be done when we're trying to have people do this, and maybe recognize where that money already would be. Because I think, Corey, you were talking about $150,000 to $170,000 for those 35 people to do a supplement on. That's just the salary money. I know there's a little bit of fringe benefits, about 25% of that on top. But if you did hire 7 teachers, I think you were talking about something just over 80,000, which means the average salary for budget's probably in that low 60s range. So you're still, for 7 of those, you're looking at $425,000 in raw salary versus the 175. That's money that's not being spent right now, that is going to be that is currently saved, that really is the pile from which they could already fund it. Because if you filled all 7 of those jobs, Corey, you wouldn't use them, but the expenditures for the district would be in line with what they budget. It would just not be in line with what is the real expenditures when you are able to spend less because of the model that currently exists.
And Dr. Cruz, I just want to add to Gordon's point. Remember, Gordon, that 150K is coming from Dwyer. It's not a district expenditure. That's coming from me. That's what I'm.
They're not, are they budgeting money to you for those supplements rather than budgeting positions?
No, the unfilled positions are just remaining unfilled. If you can remember, Gordon, that's why I brought up the point last time. I think you and I are on the same page with lap salary.
Yeah.
No, so for example, Sandra and I have IB, ACE, and AP budgets. So we're buying those supplements. I'm not being given those supplements. That's what I'm saying. So I'm completely aligned with what you're saying. It is a disparity between the two. So for example, I can't fill the 7 vacancies. So with that being said, I have to go buy 35.
Okay.
And then I have to start the conversation. So if I fill the 7 vacancies, that 150K would still be in my budget. But because I couldn't fill them, am I making sense, guys? It's like a double win. It's like, okay, I can't fill them, that's not under my control, but I still have to run a school. And, I'm shouting from the mountaintops. I'm directly in line with you guys.
Let me see if this, I'm going to ask one more question, see if I'm getting where we're going. So if you would actually be able to fill those positions, they would add additional funds to you for that essentially, or that would be covered. And you would literally not be spending $150,000 that you might have discretionary, which could go to other student needs.
Absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely. I think we may be allocated, Sandra, if I could speak correctly, maybe seven 6-period supplements in the budget, the equivalent to possibly 1. But if you can't fill those positions, Gordon, you have to trade off, whether that be positions, whether that be Title I dollars, whether that be, in my case, I'm not a Title I school, but AP, ACE, IB dollars, which, like you said, if I was blessed to be able to fill those 7 positions, that would be surplus.
Right.
So even with the vein, I get it. I taught too, and I've always taken on extra. I was just that individual for my principal, but I just want to reinforce, Gordon, the managerial standpoint too, because we can't run schools without them, especially when we're being pushed to give singletons. I think Justin spoke to that, when we're being pushed to create acceleration opportunities for all kids and don't have an environment of gatekeeping. And also too, I think this is, universal throughout our county, like finding teachers and retaining teachers is tough. But I do understand the plight of this meeting too. Ultimately, we all work to feed our families. So we have to make it not only attractive and lucrative, but it has to be, an amount that also, I'm just asking, breeds some recidivism until we can fill these positions, because I'm averaging 12 vacancies a year. And that was my initial point with bringing up the lap salary, because once that 150 is gone, Gordon, it's gone.
Yeah.
Now, I have to be magical, because, I got the teachers to cover the classes, but now my creativity is stifled because I'm on a fixed income.
Freddie?
Actually, Cartier had.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cartier. Uh-oh. Okay, we'll get back to him. Freddie?
My question's for Gordon. Are you looking, as part of this, to also have the language removed, the principal having the power to mandate it?
I haven't given a whole lot of consideration to that because when I was thinking in terms of having difficulty getting people to fill them, even with Corey talking about the need and him being unable to do it without them, I still sense that even in the occasional circumstance where maybe one has said, listen, I've got to have you do it and I've got to assign it to you, that's probably not the model they want to. I mean, you happen to be in a position where you're not doing it, and it sounds like you probably have enough takers, but it doesn't mean.
One thing that I wonder about is that is it different at the middle school level than it is at the high school level? Like that I mean, Corey and Sandra, you've both been at the middle school level. Was it more people wanting them than at the middle school level? Because I don't have a ton that want them, but the ones that, and sometimes people don't want them, but I'll approach them and I'm like, would you be interested in them? And they're like, I'll do it. I'm okay with it. No worries. Like it's usually a mutual discussion. I would never mandate it. However, I would never want it to be said that the principals on this committee are okay with taking that contract language out, because we never know what the future holds with our schools, with our state, and all, as far as we never know how things could change. And at the end of the day, we have to staff our schools and we have to meet class size. And if I would hate for that tool, if something big would happen, like we never would have thought COVID, and COVID brought a lot of talk through contract language. If you remember, like there was that clause that nobody ever thought they would ever need in about the pandemic, if I remember correctly, in the contract language. I don't remember what it was exactly around. But I would never want that removed, because just because the three of us that isn't necessarily the case. I can't speak for the other 181 principals outside of the three that are on here about whether or not I would not want to be in position that says the principals on this committee supported that coming out of the contract, because I don't think we are in support of that part of it coming out of the contract.
Can I just say really quick, I do agree with Mr. Preddy, and by all means, middle school and high school, very different. I've done both. I had no issues at the middle school. I have more issues here at the high school, because it does require, from my understanding, a lot more work. And I haven't had to mandate, but I agree with you too, Mr. Preddy, that if I have to, I like that cushion to be able to do so, because at the end of the day, I've got to get those classes covered. And that would be my priority. But yes, I would not want to remove that language. And yes, middle school is a lot easier to get people to do it opposed to the high school.
Same. I completely agree, Philip, with Sandra, because you got to remember, like high school, you take a 6-period supplement in ACE physics, Mr. Preddy, like the grading alone, like I had IB teachers. I think Randall is on this call too. He taught IB, and I know Cartier works at Suncoast, but even to Justin's point, it's not an extra period of PE, Philip. Even that's a lot. He had the same prep, and it was a lot. So I agree. I'm more concerned with the attractiveness of the compensatory than
there's a huge disparity between
the language.
I mean, I agree with you. There's a lot to say within this committee, and we could go down a whole rabbit hole with this. The difference between maybe a PE teacher taking on a 6-period supplement, or even sometimes an art teacher and stuff like that. Any grading intensive course, it's the hardest ones to get is the grading. Because remember, like whoever takes on a 6-period in my day has no plan. So and like I have an algebra teacher that took it on, but she's one that she enjoys. Her life revolves around her work, so I don't get any complaints out of her. But somebody who has a different situation with that, if it's grading intensive, it is much less attractive. And I do think there's a disparity within that a grading intensive course compared to somebody not is something to be spoken of as well.
Cartier, is your mic working now?
Yes, I think I'm good now. Am I good? You can hear me?
Yep, you're good. We can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that.
No
I
problem.
want to rewind a bit, because I remember hearing what's the resolution that we're trying to come to kind of deal. And I think Corey just opened my eyes. He spoke on it a little bit last time, but to hear it again, it really resonated. I think the main thing is the fact that there's a lot of money that the district isn't spending if he alone at his building has 7 vacancies, because they don't have to worry about benefits for a different teacher. They don't have to worry about the salary of another teacher. So I think there has to be some kind of way that the district could put into that bank that each high school principal has to pay those supplements and increase it. The money has to be there. That's kind of like my thing that I'm noticing. Like, it has to be there. If 7 teachers aren't getting a salary and benefits, there's way more than what Corey has in his bank to pay those 6-period supplement, those teachers that are taking that 6th period on. So I think we just need to figure out what number we want to increase it to. Do we want to do it a percent? Is it a certain number? But it definitely needs to be increased. And I think the district is more than capable. And I think that we see that they are. Like, based on this conversation today alone, 1,000%. I think that there's 1,000% chance that they could cover an increase of what we decide matters here. Like, what we decide would be fair here. And of course, this is a negotiation, but it's like, if we agree to it here and we could get them to see it, when we bring it to negotiation, it shouldn't even be a second thought. It should just be yes across the board.
Monica, you had your hand up?
I 100% agree with Cartier. I was going to say something similar to that, as well as just to let you know that at a previous school I was at, the principal did require teachers to teach 6-period classes against their wishes. I'm a math teacher, and in the math department alone, there was at least 3. But I know that other departments also had teachers who had 6 periods that did not want 6 periods and never asked for it, but were told they had to teach it.
Thank you, Monica. Freddie?
Monica, when you say they were told, were they told like the principal went to them and said, I really need you? Or it was just kind of like, you have no choice that you're doing this, and it was that way? Because when I say that I don't make anybody, I don't. But there are people I reach out to and say, would you be interested in this? I could really use you, but if not, I'll figure out something else.
I believe that it started out with a, would you be really interested? I really need you. And they said no. And then they followed up by saying, well, you know, like a week later when they couldn't pressure anyone else to do it, they had a 6th class.
And the other thing I was saying is we have to be careful. One of the things we don't have in this meeting is anybody from the side of the house with the money. But one of the things that I've learned on sitting in and on these negotiations for the past couple of years is that vacancy money in a system this big is factored already into the budget, because they tend to have the same number of vacancies every year. So they can anticipate in a system this big, the vacancies. So when they do budget, they anticipate those vacancies as part of the budget. Justin, I see you shaking your head. Yes, you know, and a lot of times I do think they're able to come back with some of the more lucrative raises that they've done based on some of the money has come from some of the vacancies that they've had in the unfilled positions that has been saved in the previous year. And I mean, that goes for everything, stipends, everything. There is an average number of stipends that are never used every year. There's an average number of, positions that are not filled, and all that money is still part of the big picture when it comes to Ms. Frederick, in the sense that she looks at that and anticipates that that's going to be there when she's creating the budget. So it's not like they create it and then they just have this mound of money that they, throw around at the end of the year and play it. They've already anticipated that as part of the budget when they create it.
Right, which makes me think that if at my school we were always either requested or kind of, commanded to have a 6th class, we didn't have any vacancies at that school. That principal was planning. She didn't post a vacancy, so that's also like, why are we not, the district doesn't want to budget for that many more teachers at certain schools if we're always having 6 classes that are unrequested by teachers, if that makes sense.
Cartier, can I respond to that, or do you want to go next? Monica, my response to that is that it's not like when they do it like for the vacancies, like Corey has 7 vacancies. I bet you Corey's done everything he possibly can to fill those vacancies, and if there was a position, he would fill them. It's just known when you have a system so large, they anticipate across system wide, not necessarily by the school. Like I haven't had my first year here at Western Pines, I had like 2 vacancies that I could not fill throughout the year. But my last year and this year, I have had no vacancies. So I have filled all those, but my 2 factored into another school that maybe didn't have any. But at the end of the year, I think the district usually has an overall number of a range, not a number, but a range of positions that go unfilled on a regular basis annually, just because we're such a big system.
Right. I'm more mentioning that like at my previous school, there were 5 math teachers teaching 6 classes. That wasn't a vacancy. That's just a whole nother teaching unit. If we could ask.
Was it a high need school?
No, it was Suncoast.
Oh, okay. Oh, so that's a whole nother ballgame, because I bet you those were very specific classes that would have been extremely difficult to find people who could teach that level of the course maybe as well.
Possibly, but if you advertise for a vacancy, but we weren't advertising for that position, if you know what I'm saying.
Cartier?
That was a legacy hand. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was the old hand. But I do want to say I do agree with Monica. Like even right now, I'm at Suncoast and we have multiple math teachers with 6 period. And for the most part, it's not like that. Like super hard, high level math classes. I don't see any math positions posted for Suncoast. And also, what was I going to say? Also, a lot of them got 6 period. They're teaching things like Algebra 2 honors or something like that. So it's not like it's a specific course that they're taking the 6 period for. It's across the board.
All right, and then before we wrap up today, thank you for that, Cartier. Before we wrap up today, we did receive some preliminary information for the data that we requested. I added it onto today's agenda. But basically, one of the questions that was posed was how many 6 period supplements are in use, how many units total. So as of right now, it's about 970 teaching units. And again, this is linked in the agenda if you want to go back into it. Which subjects are...
Is it teaching units or is it sections? Because this is very different.
Well, and that's why I said this is very preliminary data, just to get some information. The question was how many 6 period supplements are in use and how many teaching units total received approximately 970. So I can get more clarification as to what exactly that refers to. Justin, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I think to the question of like, what's the end game for us from this committee is, to me at least, is to take this raw data. So you said, and I assume that's for 24-25, that's the current year, that 970?
And we don't have, payroll doesn't have the information regarding the subjects that are being taught for those 6 period supplements. So that's something that we'd have to look at, other ways of gathering that information. In terms of one of the things that we discussed the last time was how many veteran teachers versus how many new teachers were taking on the 6 period supplement. And there are 946 teachers with at least 1 year experience versus 25 teachers with 0 years experience.
Okay.
So
So
Our
the
logic-
teachers have at least 1 year of teaching experience.
Our basic logic, and Gordon, correct me if I'm wrong on this, is so say that 970 instances of an additional period supplement this year, say that was 1,000 just for easy math.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that the average teacher by contract teaches 5 sections. So that's 200 teaching units, basically, essentially. If we look at the total cost of compensation to the district for 200 teaching positions and then figure out that, and then we look at the total cost of the current supplements for 1,000 additional period of instructions, and we see that gap in there because there is a significant gap into what the district's spending for the equivalent of those 200 teaching positions in the form of 1,000 supplements and what they would spend on the 200 positions, that there's got to be some, what we believe, better equilibrium in terms of the district benefiting financially from the savings of those 6 period supplements and the employee benefiting from the the imposition or the willingness to help out by covering that additional period. So to us, that's kind of that's the spectrum that we're looking at, is total cost if you hired people to do those jobs versus total cost of the current 6-period supplements, and find some better distribution than it's currently paid out through the supplement. Thank you.
Thank you. So you can see, in terms of the absences, I don't see a huge discretion in terms of teachers with or without a 6-period supplement. It was 56 hours versus 59. And how are the supplements being paid? That's one of the questions that was posed, whether or not the teachers are present. Teachers do not receive the supplement for the days without pay, but teachers do receive the supplement for other absences. So that's currently where we stand. Is there anything else that we'd like to bring? We only have a few more minutes before we conclude for our meeting today. And we have another one lined up for April 15th.
Yeah, I just probably would say that your 970D is probably literally the number of additional periods that are taught. So just to Justin's point, roughly 1,000 would be the same as 200 additional teaching positions, which amounts to about 1.5% more higher vacancy rate. 200 teaching positions out of 13,000 in the unit would be about a 1.5% vacancy rate increase, or would be filled by that if they're, if that's what's there. So, I mean, as opposed to 1,000 teachers, which would be pushing, 7-8% more on the vacancy rate. So I think your 970 is the number of periods that are being offered. And so that, yeah, I think that'll help understand what that number is. I think that's what you'll find out, but go ahead and get your clarification.
That makes sense. All right, well, for today, I think our meeting has concluded unless anybody else has anything to add. And then we can go further into
D, is the next meeting the last meeting?
unless we have something to bring to the table after that 15th.
So my question is I don't know if we have so I'm a forest kind of guy, so trees, and so I see Corey, here he goes. And so what I don't know is what is CTA looking, besides just saying a higher rate, and is that what we're looking, is that the recommendation, is CTA looking for a recommendation from this meeting or a consensus from this meeting? And Diane, you might have information too. What is it? I think in order for us to continue to talk, I think we need to know what is it that CTA would like this to come out of this, so that so as principals, because when we go back to our teams, when things are said like the principals on the committee agreed, that statement holds a lot of weight with our colleagues. And so I don't know what I would be agreeing or disagreeing to if we're going into a third meeting, besides the fact that we all understand that CTA wants more compensation for that 6-period supplement. And that's why I asked, are you looking to get rid of that contract language? Because so I wanted to make that clear that I was not in favor of that. I think I need something more, and I am type A. So what is it that CTA is looking to get out of this committee?
And where we're at this point is, because of it being a joint study, is where each group's deep diving into the questions in which they have. And then the purpose of the joint study is for the district group to go back to Tim and the district side and say, based off of everything that we've learned, we think a fair negotiation piece of what we should be presenting on our side would be to do this. The union group would be going back to Gordon and saying, based off of everything that we've heard and gathered, a fair piece to present to the table during negotiations would be. Then both sides would bring their pieces to the table during negotiations. So it wouldn't be the district side agreed and principal said they wanted. or back and forth in that. It would be us then meeting with Tim and our negotiator, them talking with Gordon and saying, you know, we've got this data, this, and us bringing it to the table and bringing it out in that way. Because we've seen and heard both sides. We've looked at data. We've been able to have our eyes open to information that we weren't privy to and things that we hadn't seen before, to where we can understand all the pieces in a different light. And we can come back and say, in all fairness, the language reads this way, and we really want to be fair to everyone. We need to look at it differently. Here's what we think is our best interest for all parties. And we present it, and then we come back, and then we look at what both sides have to present at the table. And the committee then starts working on what would work best together at that point.
Got it. And
Did
my
that-
point,
Justin,
my
you want to
point-
add something to that because of what any other additional understandings might be of a joint study?
No, just to kind of add the caveat to that, the weight of this committee's recommendations, both to the superintendent or to the CTA president, has more weight if we were to be able to. So say we came back next meeting, and again, we're talking about just numbers, not the language to remove the ability to mandate the periods, because we do understand the district values that, and it's not worth getting bogged down in that. But say arbitrarily, say the supplement was 5,000 right now, and the district could afford at a 20% FTE cost to pay them 10 grand. So they get paid 5, and the district could fund up to 10. If we as a group, principals, district side, CTA side here, said, you know what, let's split the difference and say that the supplement should go from 5 grand to 7,500. Are you in support of that recommendation? If we came out of this committee with a mutual recommendation to either side, that makes the negotiation at least easier, because then it's like everybody's on the same page, whether the district could agree to it or not. So it's not that we're agreeing to a single recommendation here, but for us in a perfect world, if we're steering in a direction, again, under that hypothetical of going from 5 grand to 7,500, and the principals looked at the math and said, you know what, that seems like a fair thing to do too, we can support that too, then everybody's going back with the same direction in mind. That's the way we look at it. It's not that we're compelled to or required to agree or make a joint recommendation, but the value of a joint recommendation to all sides, I think, shows that there's buy-in from all angles. It's not just that, well, the principals want this because it benefits them, or CTA wants this because it benefits them, type of deal.
So my reason for asking that, and Diane, great explanation, and Mr. Katz, great, or Justin, great addition to that. Being that I've been on the CTA side of the house, being that I've been on the district side of the house during the CTA negotiations, I don't think we could do any of that without a caucus with from what you're saying, Justin. I don't think that I wouldn't see that possible without knowing. I couldn't give my recommendation or blessing without knowing some of the other nuances that happen within a caucus when we actually negotiate. And so that's why I want to be very clear. And I'm an upfront kind of guy. Here comes Corey Smile again. I've watched both of you at many school board meetings, and I think you guys are masterful at what you do. I think that you do a good job representing your people, and I think that you're awesome. And so when you get up in front of the board, especially when things may not be going the way that you want it to go, and you say, but in the joint committee with the principals, they even agreed that. I want to be very careful about that as a principal sitting on this committee, because without knowing what the superintendent, what Heather Frederick is looking against, what Mr. Kubrick, there are nuances to this. For example, there's a big difference. There's more leeway when you trade off the 6 period, when you trade off a position for 6 periods compared to when you buy them outright from other funding sources within your budget. Would you not agree, Corey and Sandra? It's like next year, I'm gonna have to buy some outright out of different pockets that I've been saving for years because I don't see any ability to trade next year because I am completely filled and I don't see me going up higher at my 11th day count enough to trade off a position. So when you trade off a position, it's one thing for principals to be able to say, I'm okay with trading off for less 6-period supplements in order to increase the amount. But for principals who are using money directly out of funding sources within their budget, like Corey's been talking about, that's a whole different ballgame. And so that's why all the nuances really matter if there's a recommendation, if CTA is looking for a recommendation coming out of this. I just want to be very careful of that because I don't want to say something and pigeonhole the district into a position not knowing nuances that I may not be aware of. Is that fair? Do you believe that's a fair explanation of why I brought that up?
Yeah, and I think Gordon would echo this. You have our commitment that we, and thank you for the kind words at the beginning there, that we strive not to inaccurately portray anything because then it costs us, the credibility that we might have built up over the years. So, you have our assurances that, right now, if I were to summarize the position of both teams, it's just that there's an interest in looking at increasing the compensation without any sort of definitive, it should go up by 2% or 22%. You have our commitment that we won't mischaracterize anything that's said here or extrapolate it to bolster our position for the sake of, making it.
And you could be truthful, and not mischaracterize, but it's not it could be not in the principal's best interest to put that there based on the way Diane explained the purpose of this committee is, and that's why I wanted to clarify that.
Corey?
No, thank you guys for the clarity, and to your point, Philip. I just feel like you guys want our perspective from all angles. That's why this is a diverse group. I just want to drive, the nail through the wood that once those trade-offs are over, regardless to what dollar amount from the managerial perspective, because I believe, Philip, that's why they have us on here. I have to pay for those. So, there has to be some conversations. I agree with you, Philip. Remember, Dr. Cruz, once I trade those positions off and I still need 3 more supplements, I have to pay for those. So to Gordon's point, it becomes counterproductive when you have all these vacancies sitting on your board and you can't do anything with them, and then you have to pay for them. So, and I just want to reiterate the fact, guys, that we can't live without them. I can't speak to elementary, but I can speak to secondary. Of course, the level of work is different between middle and high, but running a high school, trying to make success unavoidable, we can't live without them. We have to have them in this day and time, and we have to up these teacher salaries to where everybody wants to teach, Justin. I'm just saying, because if you have a vacancy on your campus, that's not going to stop the kids coming from the gate and into classrooms, and you want them in front of certified teachers. Nothing against substitutes, but you want your best and brightest in front of certified teachers. So we have to make it attractive. But at the same time, I just want the group to know, once those trade-offs are done, if you need 10 more, you have to buy those 10. So if we increase the amount, we need to have some conversation wrapped around, how our school is going to afford them, because, right now it's a lot. It's a lot. Even with the minimal, let's just say even with the $5,000 that we're paying now, it's still a lot to cover those. And Dr. Cruz, I promise I have nothing else to say.
No, you're good. Listen, but time is up, so I'm not going to hold anybody up. I just want to say thank you so much. I know it's so hard to take away from your day to join us. So I really, truly, truly, truly appreciate all of you for being here. But we look forward to getting started April 15th for our next meeting, and we'll take it from there.
Get your taxes done.
They're done.
It is tax day, and it's my wedding anniversary day. Only way my husband will remember it.
Wow.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Well, you guys have a good day. Have a good rest of your day. See you soon.
Bye.